Sebastian Novak stood alone in the locker room, sweat dripping from his brow as he stared at his reflection in the mirror. The conclusion of his most recent tennis match, an electrifying, five-set thriller that ended in a narrow victory, had left him feeling uneasy, despite the cheers that had thundered from the stands mere minutes before. To the outside world, he was an indomitable champion, a man known for his piercing serve and relentless spirit on the court, but inside he was exhausted, burdened by a schedule that never allowed him to breathe. He was tethered to the sport by an unrelenting demand for perfection, an irrepressible urge to stay at the apex of his game. Nobody saw the moments like this, when he pressed a trembling hand to his forehead, physically drained yet unable to turn away from the next challenge. The public persona of the unstoppable athlete never let him appear vulnerable. After rinsing off in the shower, Sebastian returned to find his phone buzzing on the bench. His manager, Everett, had sent a text. "Don't forget the sponsors' dinner tonight. Wear something sharp." Another insistence that his personal time belonged to everyone but him. Grumbling, Sebastian typed back a reluctant "okay" and resolved to make a brief appearance before slipping away as soon as possible. That sponsor's dinner took place in a lavish ballroom designed to impress. White tablecloths draped round tables glimmered under soft lights as dignitaries, executives, and well-heeled fans of the sport looked on with half-curious, half-critical eyes. Sebastian forced himself through a round of handshakes and polite table visits, fighting off the sensation that each conversation was a performance. The sponsors congratulated him on his latest title, praising his fierce dedication and unbreakable serve. He smiled, thanked them, nodded his head as if their words provided nourishment. By the end of it, he felt more like a caged performer than an athlete. A hush settled over the crowd when the evening's entertainment was announced. A short yoga demonstration. Officials gestured toward the stage, where an instructor with flowing auburn hair and a serene smile stepped forward. Her posture was impeccable, her limbs strong and graceful as though she carried within her an artesian well of calm. The hush deepened when she began demonstrating various poses, from warrior two to crow pose, while a soft melody played in the background. She never faltered, her breath in perfect harmony with her body. Something about her presence stirred curiosity within him. He found himself leaning forward, elbows on the table, fully absorbing the subtle transitions of her movement. She exuded tranquility, yet every muscle in her body was quietly engaged. When the demonstration ended, the instructor, who introduced herself simply as Allegra, accepted the swirling applause with a grateful bow. Returning to her seat, she seemed untouched by the formalities of the event. Sebastian felt an inexplicable pull. Uncharacteristic as it was for him to linger in a social setting, he waited until the dinner was nearly over to approach her. She was chatting amicably with a small group of other guests, gesturing with her hands in a gentle, welcoming manner. He hovered, waiting for a natural moment to interrupt. Finally, Allegra turned in his direction. "Congratulations on your win," she greeted, her eyes warm, a slight spark flickering there. "I've seen you play before. You're remarkable on the court." "Thanks," he offered with a small grin. I noticed your demonstration. Impressive. I didn't expect to see yoga here tonight. Not sure how it fits in with corporate mingling." She laughed, the tinkling sound like chimes in a soft breeze. "A friend of mine works with the charity organizing this event. She thought a little demonstration of mindfulness might set a different tone. I think many people here thrive on competition and hustle, so maybe it's beneficial to see another way to engage with one's body and mind." Sebastian nodded. Her explanation resonated with him. He had long ignored the concept of rest or mindfulness, assuming they were for those who lacked ambition. Yet it was becoming apparent that his weeks were governed by an unchecked compulsion to push himself relentlessly. "Maybe I should try it," he admitted, his shallow exhale carrying a hint of longing. Allegra's eyes lit up. "You should. When we trust the rhythm of our breath, it can be transformative. My studio holds daily classes. If you ever want to see what happens when you blend discipline with self care, I'd be happy to guide you. He accepted her business card, reading the swirling design over the words Moksha Waves Yoga. The name itself evoked a cooling sense of peace. I might take you up on that, he said quietly, then excused himself, surprised at how reluctant he was to leave. The next morning, Sebastian arrived at the tennis club for his daily training session. His hitting partner hammered ball after ball across the net. Each time he made contact, the racket in his hand felt like a tether rather than an extension of his arm. His famed backhand was far from crisp, and he could sense a tightness in his shoulder that signaled an oncoming spasm. He paused mid session and asked his coach for a break. Finding a quiet hallway, he thumbed Allegra's card from his pocket, the swirling letters stirring in him an inexplicable yearning. Later that evening, after ignoring the numerous phone calls from sponsors and politely deflecting Everett's request to attend an upcoming press event, he drove to Allegra's yoga studio. The setting was hidden away from the bustle of the city, tucked beside a small pond lined with lily pads and cattails. As soon as he stepped out of his car, he noted the near silence. Only the gentle chirping of cicadas and the rustle of leaves in twilight air guided his way. Inside, the studio smelled of sandalwood incense. Soft lights gave the space a cozy glow. He was unsure whether to remove his shoes at first, but seeing a rack of neatly arranged footwear by the door, he quickly complied. He slipped into the dimness, finding a few scattered yogis quietly stretching. Allegra was at the far end, rolling out a mat. When she spotted him, she beckoned him forward. "Welcome," she whispered, as if raising one's voice here would disturb the harmony. "I'm so glad you came." "Me too," he admitted, quietly setting his belongings aside. He could almost feel the tension in his shoulders unravel in this tranquil environment. The class began with warm-ups, each motion unhurried. The classical music that played from hidden speakers soothed him more than he cared to admit. The deeper the session progressed, the more he struggled. His arms trembled during plank pose, his legs felt wobbly in Warrior Two. But Allegra's gentle reminders and calm voice helped him stay present, focusing on the moment rather than the next point. Over the course of an hour, he surrendered to a softness that was alien to him, letting the stress slowly seep out through his breath. In the final moments, when they lay on their mats with eyes closed in Shavasana, Sebastian felt a wave of peace so profound that he nearly drifted into sleep. When Allegra directed them to a seated position and whispered, "Bring your palms to your heart," he did so with an unaccustomed sense of gratitude. It was a sliver of a respite from his daily urges to dominate. He found a tentative hush blooming in the midst of his chaotic thoughts. After class ended, she carefully stacked mats as people filtered out, leaving only the two of them in the studio. Candlelight flickered, casting shifting shadows against the walls. "How do you feel?" she asked, the question offered as though she genuinely wanted to know, free of judgment. He took a moment to consider. "Better than I have in a while. My mind was so cluttered, but for a few minutes I felt clarity. I didn't know it was even possible. What you felt was probably just a flicker of your own awareness," Allegra answered gently. "Sometimes all we need is an invitation to step off the treadmill, let go of the expectations, and find refuge in our breath." He nodded. In that moment, her words felt like a soft balm. "Maybe I should do this more often," he said. "I can see why people become so dedicated." A slight gentle laugh escaped her. It's refreshing to see someone so immersed in physical competition discover the gentle side of movement. "I'd love to see you in more classes, if your schedule allows." "Count on it," he replied, the statement heavy with a sincerity he rarely brought to new endeavors. With that, they bid each other good night, the unspoken promise of shared calm as tangible as the lingering incense in the air. Over the next few weeks, Sebastian balanced grueling tennis practices with Allegra's yoga sessions. At first, he only managed one class a week, then two, then three, making time by waking up earlier or skipping superfluous appearances at social engagements. Though his on-court style remained as fierce as ever, an undercurrent of steadiness came to him, elevating his game in subtle ways. He paced himself better, read his opponents more intuitively, and handled the stress of tournaments with greater composure. The media questioned his new discipline, praising his renewed focus. He grinned at the irony. It was not a renewed focus on tennis, but a new focus on himself. Yet it was off the court where Sebastian noticed the most profound change. He found himself lingering after class to chat with Allegra. They talked about life, how she had once lived in a bustling city but grew restless with its unrelenting speed, how her travels in India had taught her the beauty of stillness, how tennis had become the realm of his entire existence from the time he was a child. Before long, their conversations ventured beyond sports and yoga, drifting into personal stories about childhood, family, and hidden dreams. One evening turned night, after a quiet class had wrapped up, the two discovered they were the last in the studio. Allegra offered to brew some herbal tea in a small kitchen area adjoining the main space. Sebastian agreed, welcoming the chance to spend more time enveloped by her easy warmth. She selected a delicate mix of chamomile and lavender. While waiting for the water to boil, he watched her graceful movements in the subdued kitchen light, marveling at how she seemed to sink intuitively into each moment without forcing its shape. He realized the air around her was different from any environment he'd known. With Allegra, there was no scoreboard, no trophy, no victory needed. Sebastian, she asked softly, stirring honey into their mugs, does tennis ever feel like a cage for you? The question surprised him, not because he'd never considered it, but because it carved directly into the heart of his inner struggle. Sometimes, he admitted, it's what I love, but it demands everything. And it's like no matter how much I give, it wants more. There's always another match, another tournament, another burden. The entire world watches your every move, cheering for your wins, but expecting more of them. She passed him a mug. I get it. When I was younger, I was a professional dancer. I recognized the cage too. It took me a while to realize that the art form I loved had become an unyielding master. Yoga helped me reconcile my passion for movement with a gentler life. I didn't want to live in constant fear of failure or breaking my body. Maybe tennis draws you in a similar way, but also chains you. The smell of chamomile and lavender curled beneath his nose. You realized you had to change. Did it feel like a failure to walk away from your dance career? Allegra sipped her tea. In the beginning, sure. There was shame in letting go of something I'd considered my identity. But I found something that aligned with a deeper part of me, gave me more space to breathe. He looked into the warm swirl in his mug. I'm not sure if I'm ready to let go. I can't imagine my life without tennis, but I do think I need something to balance it. You don't have to give up your passion for competition, she replied, resting her other hand lightly on his forearm. Sometimes it's enough to anchor yourself with something that reminds you you're more than your career. That's how I feel about yoga. It can be a sanctuary in the midst of life's storms. He turned his arm, allowing their palms to briefly meet. A hint of a smile crossed her face. In that fleeting moment, a connection sparked. Unspoken, yet powerfully tangible. Would you, he began hesitantly, would you like to grab dinner with me sometime, outside of all this? His gaze traveled around the cozy kitchen corner. Their usual meeting ground had become the yoga studio, but he wanted to know her in a setting where it wasn't just teacher and student. Her lips curved into a radiant smile that made his pulse quicken. I'd love that. They ended up at a small vegetarian bistro Allegra recommended. The decor was unpretentious, hand-painted murals adorned the walls, featuring vines and flowers that seemed poised to bloom from the surfaces. The menu was refreshingly unusual to Sebastian, who was accustomed to bland grilled chicken and steamed vegetables, typical of an athlete's rigid diet. He reveled in the creative flavor combinations. They laughed when he tried a herbal juice blend that turned out to be far stronger in taste than he expected. Conversation flowed with a graceful ease. There was no friction, no sense of competition. Allegra offered anecdotes about her travels and how she used to dream of living in a big city, while Sebastian spoke candidly about the pressures of tennis, the countless times he battled through injuries rather than admit vulnerability. She teased him about his stoic game face, demonstrating her over the top interpretation of it. That triggered a childlike giggle from him, an unfamiliar sound that had been locked away for far too long. Leaving the bistro, they stepped out under a sky awash with moonlight. He offered her his arm as they walked through the quiet streets. It was a slow pace, unhurried, no crowd to greet them or paparazzi to chase them. In this hush of night, draped in silver beams from above, they discovered a tender ease in each other's company. By the time he escorted her to her apartment door, it felt natural to share a soft, sweet kiss goodnight. The next week brought another big tournament for Sebastian. He insisted on maintaining his daily yoga practice, at least in modified forms. Allegra texted him calming affirmations or short, guided breathing clips to help ground him before each match. The effect showed on the court. He unleashed a rhythmic power in his serves and returns, reminiscent of the slow, deliberate focus he cultivated in yoga class. Each victory felt less like a desperate scramble to prove something and more like an artistic display of cultivated skill. But inevitably, the demands of his tennis career intensified. He advanced rapidly through the tournament bracket, and the media coverage ramped up to a fever pitch. Suddenly, sponsors clamored for interviews. Fans demanded autographs. After one particularly challenging match, he was cornered by a sea of reporters, each firing question after question about his new Zen approach. Rumors circulated: has Novak lost his killer instinct? Or has yoga made him go soft? The gossip both mystified and irritated him. In those tense moments, he found himself longing for Allegra's presence. But she too was busy with a yoga retreat she had organized, a 3-day event designed for participants to immerse themselves in meditation, breathwork, and posture refinement. Though they wanted to connect, their hectic schedules aligned poorly, and each day apart felt surprisingly hollow. Though parted, they remained in close contact by text. Late one evening, after an exhausting semifinal match, Sebastian video called Allegra. She appeared on the screen, wearing comfy pajamas, hair in a loose braid. Her studio's retreat had ended for the day, and flickering candles illuminated her space. He confided in her about the pressure that seemed to loom even larger now that everyone noticed his changed demeanor. "Let them talk," Allegra said softly. "Admit to yourself you're playing better, but more importantly, living better. No one can take that from you." He nodded gratefully, tracing her image on the screen with his fingertips. "I can't wait to come back and see you," he murmured. "I'll be here," she promised. The finals arrived, and Sebastian marched onto the tennis court with a new calmness. The crowd roared, anticipating a showdown of power and grit. During the first set, however, something felt off. His shoulder tweak from earlier in the season resurfaced, sending stabs of pain up his arm whenever he served at full strength. After losing the set, he fleeted to the trainer for taping, an effort to stave off further damage. Usually in times like this, panic might overtake him. Instead, he drew on Allegra's influence, closing his eyes for a moment to ground himself in the hush of a single breath. When he resumed playing, he adjusted his strategy, focusing on finesse over pure might. He remembered Allegra's gentle reminders about how each movement in yoga can be adapted to the body's needs in the moment. He harnessed an unexpected agility, dropping slice shots and mixing in angled forehands, paralyzing his opponent. A final, graceful lob sealed the second set in his favor. At the match's apex, the rally extended to a jaw-dropping exchange of staccato volleys. Then he unleashed a cross-court winner that flirted elegantly with the sideline. The umpire declared, "Game, set, match!" The stadium thundered with applause. Sebastian collapsed to his knees. Instead of the raw, primal scream he often released after a major victory, he sunk into a gentle wave of relief. Applause rattled the stands. Photographers captured his image from every angle, but deep inside he felt at peace. For the first time, it wasn't about proving his supremacy. It was simply about the joy of having played well, of having stayed true to the newfound serenity within himself. As soon as he could, Sebastian slipped away from the throngs to find privacy in the locker room. While staff celebrated outside, he grabbed his phone to call Allegra. When she picked up, he glimpsed tears glistening in her eyes. He laughed through his own tears. "I did. I can feel your calm in every shot." "Come home," she said, voice trembling with emotion. "Come find me." The next day, Sebastian raced from the airport to her studio, ignoring the countless texts. As he approached the garden walkway leading to the door, his heart thundered in anticipation. Upon entering, he found her sitting cross-legged on a mat, incense curling upward in a slow arabesque. Their eyes locked. Neither spoke for a moment. They just rose and melted into each other's arms. "I missed you," he whispered into her hair. Allegra held his hand, leading him outside. They walked in the warm afternoon sun until they found themselves by the pond. Birds skimmed the water's surface, and aquatic plants swayed gently in the breeze. She guided him to sit on a bench near the water's edge. There, the earth's colors felt brighter somehow, fresher, more vibrant, reflecting the surge of affection churning between them. She tucked a stray wisp of hair behind her ear. You look different," he teased. "Do I? Probably tired. That match took a lot out of me." "No," she said, her voice taking on a soft seriousness. "You look free." He breathed in the sweet air, the tension in his body melting away. "I feel free," he admitted. "I love tennis, I do. But this last month, practicing yoga, talking to you, not always putting myself in a constant battle, reminded me that tennis is just a part of me, not the entire sum." Her eyes glowed, reflecting the water's sunlight. "I'd hoped you'd find that peace. And I want you to know there's room for all of you. The champion, the man who gets up with shaky arms in yoga class, the friend, the partner, the lover." He took her hands inside his, weaving their fingers together. "I don't want to lose this feeling. Or you." "You don't have to," she murmured. The quiet slip of time around them was a testament to a world that still pulsed energetically, yet allowed them a moment of pristine calm. They spoke of the future with cautious optimism. He would keep competing, but cultivate more space for wellness. She would keep teaching, offering the gift of mindfulness and presence to those seeking it. And in the hush between them, they realized how deeply they cared for each other, how these two seemingly disparate worlds, one of fierce competition, one of gentle alignment, held a profound center of gravity in common: the pursuit of unfiltered truth. Both recognized that honesty without judgment was the key to finding serenity. The weeks that followed marked a radiant season in their bond. Sebastian, after winning his tournament, had a brief lull in his schedule before the next onslaught of commitments. Allegra offered him private yoga instruction in the mornings, combining body-strengthening asanas with deep breath work. In the evenings, they cooked together, exploring recipes that balanced nutrition and flavor. They also laughed uproariously when Sebastian occasionally messed up a dish, the smoke alarm shrieking in protest. One afternoon, he asked her to visit the tennis club with him. She shyly agreed, uncertain of her place in that environment. Yet as they entered the court, he showed her how to hold a racket. With gentle guidance, he walked her through the basics of forehands and backhands. She giggled whenever she managed to send the ball over the net. He teased that her form was surprisingly graceful for a novice. "How can it be graceful?" she joked, adjusting her stance. "I come straight from the land of downward dogs and half-moons." They volleyed back and forth, finding quiet joy in the snap of the strings. Sebastian toned down his intensity significantly, lobbing the ball so she could return it comfortably. As the playful session wore on, her yoga training shone through in her balance and lightness. and she beamed in satisfaction. When a rally lasted more than a few hits, taking a break, they wandered off the court and sat on a bench beneath the shade of a palm tree. She rested a hand on his knee. "See, I can do athletic stuff too," she jested. He chuckled. "You're a natural. Who knows? You could have a pro tennis career if you started younger." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "I think I found my calling. But this is fun. I see why you love it." He brushed a lock of sweat-dampened hair from her forehead, leaning in carefully until his lips hovered near hers. "I love yoga too," he murmured, sealing the tease with a tender kiss. The cheerful afterglow lingered as they parted, hearts humming with sweet contentment. But as the next major tournament loomed, obligations pulled at Sebastian once more. Practice sessions became longer. Sports journalists sought exclusive cover stories. He recognized that sustaining a relationship and an elite tennis career required an artful balance. Sensing a twinge of fear at the potential strain, he confided in Allegra. "Maybe the world doesn't realize how much you inspire me," he told her one evening after they'd shared a quiet dinner. "When I'm on the court and I'm losing focus, I picture that safe space in your studio, the slow inhalation that recenters me. It's like you're there, guiding me." She touched his cheek gently, "And you remind me that it's possible to channel confidence and purpose without sacrificing compassion. Crew members at my studio have noticed that I incorporate more dynamic movements now, inspired by your fluid footwork." They held each other in the hush of her cozy living room, the sense of incense and the promise of tomorrow swirling in the stillness. Despite their outward differences, they realized together that they had forged a harmony neither had anticipated. Eventually, Sebastian waved goodbye through her doorway, heading to the car that would take him to the airport. The next tournament called, but this time he went forward with a sense of renewal. Texts and calls would sustain their bond for the weeks he would be away. He carried with him not only a racket, but also the intangible gift Allegra had given him, the power to move in tune with himself, to be mindfully present on and off the court. Their path ahead wouldn't be without challenges. There would be moments when fear, jealousy, or exhaustion threatened to disrupt the calm they'd cultivated. Pressures of the pro tour would persist, and the quiet demands of Allegra's growing yoga community would also multiply. But each had found someone who understood the power of a single breath, who honored a gentler approach in life's most heated moments, and they promised each other to nurture those truths. Standing in the terminal, Sebastian took one last glance at his phone before boarding. He saw a text from Allegra. "Wherever you serve, I'll be cheering, and whenever you return, I'll welcome you in peace." The tennis champion breathed a serene smile and whispered to himself, "Namaste," letting the sound of it harmonize with the steady beat of his heart. He walked forward, secure in the knowledge that in love, just as in yoga, each step is an act of presence, and each presence is an invitation to dwell in serenity and passion alike.